Hey, what's up, Googans? Beef here. It's a Tuesday morning. Sorry for the late start here on After Drill. Drew not with us today as he's making his way back from Tallahassee. He was in there for the game last night, Florida State and Virginia Tech. So it's taken Drew a little longer than anticipated to get back as he's dragging a huge L with him down I-10, and it's really slowing down his progress. Really disappointing showing for the Seminoles last night in Tallahassee against Virginia Tech. Look, it's no shame to lose to Tech. Tech's a good team. They're both top 20 clubs, but to lose in the manner in which they lost was not good. The FSU offense did not look good throughout the game. They looked unsure of themselves, a lot of mental errors. It was not a good look. It wasn't a good start for the Willie Taggart era in Tallahassee. Elsewhere, though, great start, granted against a cupcake, but the Florida Gators feeling great about themselves after their opening win against Charlie Southern. Feeling great as they go 1-0 and get ready for Kentucky, where the streak lives, against Kentucky. Meanwhile, last night the Noles lost. Earlier, Saturday, it was or should I say, was it Sunday night? Sunday night. The Canes lose in Dallas to LSU, another pretty one-sided affair. The Canes did not look great in that game against LSU in Dallas, and if you heard it on the show today, we were playing nothing but music from 1975, and the reason for that is this is the first time since 1975 that both FSU and Miami have started 0-1 on the season. And, it's, again, no shame in losing to either one of those teams. So I'm not trying to be too down on FSU or the Canes. I'm not some, Gator fan or Bulldog fan here. It's I'm impartial on this one, but it wasn't the starts either one of those programs thought they were getting off to. That's for sure. Meanwhile, Jaguars getting ready for the season to kick off now. The NFL season kicks off in just 2 days. Thursday night, we've got the Falcons and Eagles squaring off, and the Jaguars head up to New York in a couple days. Sunday afternoon, they'll be up in East Rutherford taking on the G-Men. And, the weather forecast for this one doesn't look great. Temperature's good, but it's looking like there might be rain in the forecast, so it could be a sloppy one. That may play into the Jaguars' hands with the type of defense they like to play. It seems like the Giants are planning on riding Saquon Barkley hard. They use that number 2 pick on the big running back from Penn State, and the Giants released Davis Webb as part of their cut down to 53, and that shows that they really think that these moves they've made offensively are going to extend the career of Eli Manning, who's 37, but it seems like, at least for the foreseeable future, he's going to be their guy. I mean, the Giants, I think, thought at least for a time that Davis Webb was being groomed to be the successor for Eli Manning, but that's definitely not going to be the case now. He's out in New York. Eli Manning at 37 is going to be the guy, and he's the guy for the foreseeable future for the Giants. So they're gonna ride Saquon Barkley real hard up there in New York. We'll see if the Jaguars have a plan of attack to bottle him up in his NFL debut. Of course, the Jags had to trim their roster down to 53 as well by Saturday afternoon, and I don't think very many head-scratching cut downs made by the Jags. Drew is with us. Drew being weighed down right now by the crushing weight of an absolutely embarrassing loss for Florida State. I told Drew I may have to pony up. I may have to get off the wallet. I may have to get in the Beefmobile. I may have to head west. I may have to go into Tally for the September 22nd showdown as my beloved Huskies of Northern Illinois head in to take out Florida State. And what I thought was just going to be an abject beatdown, but after last night, we may have a chance. We just got smoked by Iowa, but we may have a shot against Florida State because they looked like hell last night. And maybe we could spring the trap on them and get revenge for that Orange Bowl back in 2012. Finally payback for what Florida State did to my guy Jordan Lynch all those years ago. But yeah, the Jags trimmed the roster down. I don't think there were any stunning surprise moves made. That's very violent imagery, Drew. I'm going to pretend I didn't see that. So my opinion of you hasn't changed. I still love you, friend. I don't like that you. I don't like that. I don't like that violent imagery you presented, Drew. I appreciate the Googan on the text line this morning who said it was apropos of Florida State last night to wear black to their own funeral. And we'll leave it at that, Drew. We'll leave it at that. You and me might go to Fifth City here in a couple weeks as Husky Seminoles gets closer and closer. Yeah, no major shocks, I think, with the Jaguar roster. Maybe a little bit of some eyebrow-raising moves, but it's a team that's built for now. They're built for right now. Their window's open. They're built for right now. So there's no stunning moves made by this Jaguar team. They're ready to go, man. Maybe the most shocking thing, but it's not really that shocking because we knew it was coming, is that the rookie Leon Jacobs is going to get that start at outside linebacker out of Wisconsin. He's a seventh-round pick, but he's shown well throughout training camp in the preseason, and it's. I'm not trying to take away from Leon Jacobs. He's played great, but it's also a byproduct of the fact that that's, as far as any group on this team, that's the thinnest spot is linebacker. There's not a ton of depth at linebacker, and they're going to really need those guys to not just play well, but also stay healthy because there's not a lot behind them that you can lean in on. So linebacker is one of those spots you got to keep your eye on because if dudes get hurt, man, that could be a trouble spot for this team. But nothing really surprising in the cut-down moves. Now, of course, the transaction wire was busy this weekend outside of the cut-downs as the Khalil Mack trade went down this weekend. Mack off to the Bears for a first-round pick, a second-round pick, I believe a fifth-round pick also went to Oakland, but a second is going back to Chicago. The Bears went ahead and turned around and gave Khalil Mack just a giant, massive contract, making him the highest-paid defensive player in the league. Clearly, the Bears went all in on this. They saw that as a move that could really push them into relevancy in the NFC North. I'm not so sure. That's not a knock on Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack is an absolute monster. He's a beast, and they've got good players on that team. But I don't think they have enough good players on that Bears team. I mean, it's not a very good team, especially offensively. It's not a good team. They're going to struggle, and I don't see how. They look like about a 4 to 5 win team before they went and got Khalil Mack. I don't see them as much more than that after getting him. They might be able to threaten 500, but I don't see them much better than that. The NFC is just too good. I don't see the Bears as a playoff team. Not right now. Not with where Mitch Trubisky's at in his development, and not where that offense is. I don't see that as a postseason team as a real threat. They're better for sure. I subscribe to the philosophy that there's no such thing as too many pass rushers. You want them coming in waves, man. That the opposing quarterback should never be comfortable. I think that's one of the surest routes to victory is if you can keep that other quarterback off balance through the duration of the game. That's your best shot at victory, and a lot of that comes from your pass rush, and that's why I was not on board with the idea of trading Dante Fowler this whole offseason because. Yannick Ngakoue is great, and Calais Campbell is great, and all these guys are great, but you got to be able to come in waves, and Dante Fowler's part of that. And I know a lot of Jaguar fans said, hey, what if they traded Fowler and a first-round pick or whatever to get Khalil Mack? And I was never against that, but it just seemed unrealistic. It just didn't seem like something that really made sense for this team where they're at right now. They've got their core of guys that they are trying to prepare and anticipate having to pay. And not that I'd be opposed to getting Khalil Mack and figuring it out, but there's a real chance that if you got Khalil Mack, if you sign him to a deal, which you would think would be a precursor of getting a trade done for Khalil Mack, that you'd have to sign him, and then you'd have to start thinking about what guys you're willing to part ways with after this season because you're not going to be able to. You can't pay everybody. It's cap league. You can't pay everyone. Somebody's got to go when you start paying guys. Someone has to go. And look, that's part of the advantage of the deal they signed Blake Bortles to. It's a competitive deal. Amongst quarterbacks in the league. It's granted it's not as cheap as his rookie deal, but it's still very competitive in the marketplace for NFL quarterbacks. Granted, that's because he's a middle-of-the-road type quarterback, but with this type of defense, that's probably good enough. But yeah, we're excited, man. It's a game week. Game week's here. The NFL season is upon us, and we couldn't be happier about it. We're hopeful for a big year for the Jags. We went through some of the national prognosticators. Most of them have the Jags at least as a playoff team, if not a lot better. So we hope they're right. We hope for a big year. We're hoping we're planning a parade down Bay Street. That's what we're hoping for. But we'll see what, it's a long season, man, and so much can happen in the NFL season. It's, they say this in every sport, but they talk about championship windows, and people throw out like, "Oh yeah, we should win. We should win titles because the team's this good." Winning titles in a pro sports league is so hard. It's so hard, and I don't think people understand just how hard it is. They feel like because you've got talent that you should almost be expected to be a championship team. You can expect your team to be a contender. That's fair. You can expect your team to be championship caliber. But winning the whole thing is hard. It takes breaks. It takes good fortune, whether it's health or just you get hot at the right time. It's a finicky thing, winning titles, and a lot of it comes down to playing your best ball at the right time. How many times do we see the teams that start 5-0, 6-0, at the start of a season, and then they fade, and they're never really heard from. They're not a factor down the stretch, and they limp out of the playoffs early. And we've seen that a lot in the NFL. It's a fickle thing, and that goes for every sport. Winning a title is hard, but hopefully, the window's now, right? The window's now here in Jacksonville. It's open, and it's not going to be open for long. Doing things like New England has done, and requires. You got to have that one guy that's just an absolute all-timer. It's hard to stay relevant and competitive for an extended period of time. And hopefully Tom Coughlin and Dave Caldwell and Doug Marrone have found the formula to when guys have to go out, other guys come in, and you're able to stay competitive. You look at what Baltimore has done and Pittsburgh has done over the years where, the pieces have changed, but they've remained competitive and they've made the right moves when guys are aging out. They've been able to replace those guys or replace or find guys that are contributing at a high level in other spots of their team that, they're able to keep themselves in the mix. And, we hope that's the situation in Jacksonville because you're not going to be able to keep all these guys forever. You're not going to be able to keep all these dudes on the defensive line forever. Maybe even not much past this year, because at some point, and it may be after this season, you're going to have to pay Yannick Ngakoue, and you're going to have to pay Jalen Ramsey, and you're going to have to pay Miles Jack. And if you want to keep those guys, that's going to come at the expense of other guys, and that's guys like Calais Campbell, and there's guys like Malik Jackson, there's guys like Marcel Darius, and that's guys like Barry Church, and there's guys like Tashawn Gibson. They're great guys and great contributors and great players, but at some point, those guys have to filter out because the young guys got to get paid. And then at that point, it's on you because now those guys are veterans. You got to find the new young guys that are going to contribute if you're going to stay relevant. And that's the challenge. That's the real challenge. But look, I give credit to Dave Caldwell. I was not a huge Caldwell fan the first couple of drafts he had. The last few years, he's nailed it. He's done great. And this year seems like another home run because you got a starter in the 7th round. Granted, we're not super high on drafting punters, but you drafted a punter in the 6th round. It seems like he's going to be fine. They got Harrison in the 3rd round. He seems like a guy who, in a year's time, is going to be ready to step in to Barry Church's shoes. Taven Bryan looks like he's certainly got the talent to come in and contribute, and we'll see what DJ Chark can do too. So it seems like another good draft class for Dave Caldwell. But ultimately, it's the guys that are going to have to get it done for the Jags this year. If they're gonna run that parade down Bay Street, it's going to be on the backs of Jalen Ramsey and Calais Campbell and Miles Jack and Yannick Ngakoue. And and Leonard Fournette. Those are the guys that are going to get it done. If they're going to win, it's going to be with those guys. And if too many of those guys get dinged up or have off years, then it's not going to happen. That's just the reality of it. It's the difference between good enough and not good enough is narrow. It's a narrow margin. You're not too far removed from being the difference between being a pretty good 12-4 team and being a 9-7 team. It's not that big. It's a couple injuries, a couple bad breaks, and suddenly you're out of the mix. Hopefully that's not the case this year. Fingers crossed. Knock on wood. Let's get that. Let's get the big brass ring, right? Let's go get the biscuit. Do it, Jags. We love it. I'll talk to you tomorrow, Googans.